Every week in the Cult Creators School, Ricky does a cult brand breakdown. And so this week is Liquid Death. So if you've been lost in the sauce on some Liquid Death but not sure why you're bought in, let's look at this positioning, right? So nobody has differentiated water. Water was boring. Water was like Dasani, or you had maybe Evian. You're like, it was just a commodity. But then they're like, well, hold on, let's make it different. Let's make it unique. And so positioning is huge. Most people don't make any money because they don't differentiate in their positioning. And so Mike Cesario, he didn't try to be a billion-dollar founder. He just tried to make something cooler for his audience of like punk rock, right? And so he saw artists that were playing at festivals. They had to drink beer or energy drinks. It was dependent on the sponsor, but it had to be like one of those big cans. And so you couldn't just like look cool just drinking like Dasani. And so they're like, well, what if water was just as cool? It looked cool to hold, it looked cool to drink. But then they're like, okay, let's lean in harder, right? They got their archetype. They went with the rebellious archetype. And so then with the enemy, they're like, all right, make it front and center, death to plastic. So instead of plastic water bottles, like pretty much all of them, then he started creating the like King Can style beer ones. And so then they went with murder your thirst, right? They're like, well, what is the most dangerous thing? Water. So they did a waterboarding video to like kick them off. And so then they just started going harder on that. Like, what else is death? What else is like killing? And so then they went with like the cutie polluties, right? You could buy these sea creatures, stuffed animals that had like straws stuck up their nose and plastic in their bellies. And it's so different and unique, right? And so, yeah, they did this deadliest stuff on earth. They ran some ads. It was basically a VSL, but it had 5 million views and generated 100 grand in their first month, right? So they fucking nailed it just by repositioning how they were against like Dasani, how they were against Evian, how they like against all the big brands just to make it cool. And then it's just a lot easier to have the narrative, right? 100% bone-chilling spring water in a can. That's different. And then that leads to things like Killer Cola, Severed Lime, Cherry Obituary, right? Bold collabs like Steve-O to create a voodoo doll, or Tom Segura creating a glory hole because recycling is glorious, right? Martha Stewart even on the Dismembered Moments candle line. So it's crazy how well you can create marketing when you have a unique positioning. And most people don't have unique positioning, and that's why we fucking love cult branding, cult bonding, all of the things that make it different, right? Build for a certain specific audience and then just go fucking hard in the paint. And so if you want to see more cult brand breakdowns, it happens every single week. They're free. They're in the school. Just go to school.com/cult creators and get it.